Congratulations, you have reached the Emperor tier for Space Marine 2 reviews on the PlayStation 5. I am CouchCube. I remember painting Citadel miniatures in my teenage years in the 90s, back when my hands didn't proactively vibrate. Now I get to look at them at 4K, a pegged frame rate, blood, some of the best glory kill and death animations you've seen in Games Workshop. If this isn't heaven, I don't know what is. This game does bear some continuation with the characters and some references to Space Marine 1, but something was missing when Titus opened his mouth, and it was of course Mark Strong's voice. He's now on Marvel money and probably clean out of budget for the studio. But Clive does a great job, and I will say this is pretty cool on a story front. There's intrigue, there's deceit, there's chaos addition, which was a thing in the first game, but it was very much orc orientated, and this is very much Genestealer or Tyranid orientated. However, it does take a swing about 3/4 of the way into the game. This is a third-person shooter at heart with some beefy melee mechanics, but quite a lot of range, explosions. There's even jump packs introduced, but you are a big, chunky Space Marine, so there's no ducking or crouching. You are geared up to take quite a lot of damage. It also features some spectacular glory kills that feel a little bit like the newer Doom games, with a clicking of the stick once you have submitted enough damage to said enemy. I happen to be a huge Warhammer fan, particularly 40k and in gaming, and a huge third-person ARPG shooter fan, which is exactly what this game is. The two have met in the middle, and it is glorious. But can it hold up against all the other third-person shooters on the market that are out there this year? And will this get a mention towards the end? Forgot ye, all will be revealed. Let's cover what we're looking at first. I was extremely skeptical about that quality mode. The game is ballsy enough to default to it, and I was reading a lot of threads, and I have a lot of you lovely subscribers sort of warning me about the game's performance, particularly on day one or week one. We did see minor patches come in, there may be some bigger ones, but hand on heart, this was a quality mode. Really happy with it. No major frame dips. This would vastly affect things on a third person front with all of the activity going on, all of those moving Genestealers and Chaos Marines. Everything was absolutely perfect, which is pretty damn surprising considering the amount of particles and detail on screen. There is a section when the jump packs are introduced. You've got multi-tiered amounts of enemies in sort of 3D arena maps almost. It nearly fell over a couple of times. I was sensing that the poor machine and game were both on the edge, but that's what you want from a quality PlayStation 5 game. Also does quite well on extended range and scope gunplay. I didn't even think that it would cover that area, but I do want to talk about some of the systems that are involved in the close quarters combat. It isn't two-dimensional. You have options on parry or avoid, and the enemies have different coloured attacks. Orange meaning get out of the way, blue meaning there's a parry coming in, and you get rewarded for a smash or grab. It looks very cool, and it's great to stop you from being interrupted when you're inside a huge swarm of Genestealers. Genestealers, and that's the idea, is you're just wading in. You're shooting what's at distance, and you're dealing with the stuff that's up in front of you with your chainsword or sword or hammer. My god, the hammer. This is kind of the same system that came with Space Marine 1. Getting to actually see some of the trailer scenes in game was pretty amazing. I was always concerned that they were just dressed up cutscenes, but no, so much of the promise on those original trailers is in this game, and it is just a thing of beauty as you can understand, stopping and soaking up all of the models, the details on the environment, how the lights hit and everything. It's made it very difficult for me to smash through this game. Talking of smashing, I think that's a Lehman Russ. You do get involved with the Imperial Guard quite a lot. None of those bipedal Ed 209 things about though, but loads of high-ranking guard, and you see them doing their training, and they all get down on one knee when you're walking past, and the size of the Marines themselves is really well represented in this game. You feel massive, strong, and powerful, and important. I don't get that a lot in IRL. Wanted to just show the environmentals there. There are an incredible amount of explosive barrels and things that blow up. A lot of the idea is to deal with the horde in its clump before it gets to you, before it starts separating. So there's loads of grenades and explosive barrels littered around in the run up to the enemy being able to get to you.
They never learn.
So I want to just cover briefly how the inventory system works and how the weapons are sort of dealt out. They're not unlocked, they're sort of littered around. You can go las cannon and energy weapon, and they got it right with not having reload animations or magazines on any of that stuff, but the bolters, the heavy bolters, the grenade launchers, some of those single-handed pistols are amazing, and you can fiddle around with your loadout prior to going to a mission. And I do love the whole 360 degree. You can look at everything. They haven't backed down on too much detail. I have seen Warhammer games that take their weapons a little bit more seriously. Whilst I'm on that subject, Dark Tide is probably the strongest Warhammer game I have played up until this. They have dropped such a big ball. Can you all come back to me? Look at this golden sun that's right behind the head of my main character. I'm going into the appearance tab. Also, there's only 4 different outfits on the unlock as far as I can see at this stage. Saber Interactive, can you fix that as soon as possible? Because Pervanova Space Marine 40k armor is one of life's few pleasures.
Brother Titus, you leave on a mission of vital importance. The battlefield below leaves no room for the slightest error of judgment.
Onto that story, and I want to be careful because it's actually quite interesting. I watched every cutscene. Can't believe that. It's the most enjoyable Warhammer 40k story I've had since Inquisitor. So not terrible. Loads of intrigue, and there's like this issue underlying the whole way through the front end. It's quite well dealt with. This makes those damned lifts, which have a 2-prompt interaction on them, seem a little bit easier. Do have a special. It is situated on triangle, and it is switched out halfway through the game. I'm going to come to that in a second, but it's kind of like a fury mode, like an adrenaline rush. Your melees do loads more attack, you deal a lot more damage, everything goes this crazy color. It's pretty cool, and the build isn't too long, i.e. you can use it more than once within a mission. Also gives you a rather iconic Lictor fight early on. If you know about that, Genestealer, Tyranid strain, it's kind of cloaked, they infiltrate communities, they're scary AF, and they've got these big poisonous claws. Dawn of War 2 did the Lictor right, so does this.
What's your plans?
There's also a combo system on that sword that's applicable to the type of weapon you take out. And the chainsword's got like a 4-button top-end combo, but you've got to land all 3 previous hits, and then you get to do a big slam on the 4th. It's very satisfying, but it's very tough to actually get out. Obligatory flamethrower level, pretty damn cool. We've got the little Ripper killers running around. I think they could have done a little bit more with them. Again, if you're into Dawn of War, you know how devastating stumbling into a pack of those is. Walk softly and carry a big gun. This little soundbite was absolutely perfectly timed, however.
It has been some time since I brought death from above.
The day is not yet done, brother. We'll make quick work of the Tyranids.
I hope they survive.
Do not admit such a thought.
And I instantly remembered it being one of the main things of Space Marine 1. Jumping, slamming huge groups of orcs. That was even the big seller in the trailer, was a Marine coming down and into a pile of orcs and like 20 of them getting scattered up into the air. Everyone was like jaw dropped at how good these physics were in Space Marine 1. And it was quite a big game in 2011. It was that sweet spot when the PlayStation 3 and 360 devs were really squeezing everything out of their machines. And the game stayed on PC and sold really well for like 5 years after. It feels so good. It also offers the chance for a hover. The engine kind of coats with it. It's like Anthem, but with Warhammer stuff. It's amazing. And the queue up, you get two. So you can do a vertical and a cross, or you can just use it to dart around on the ground. However, as much as the Emperor giveth, the Emperor also taketh awayeth. And this level is gone, swept under the rug, disappeared, but it does come back. So don't lose hope, but enjoy it whilst you got it.
Frag grenade deployed.
I want to talk about that friendly AI. I had somebody in the comments mention in the trailer that they wanted to play this single player offline. All of this footage has been single player offline, by the way, but they were worried about the difficulty and the AI players not being able to help you out that much. They have not gone down in 25 hours of gameplay. In actual fact, they've saved my ass about 10 times. They will always come back for you, but beware, there is a certain amount of times that you can be revived in that campaign, which is interesting. I got on my last life a few times, so if anything, they're a massive help. I put them up there with Alien Fireteam's Elite's AI, which is one of the top notches. Just as I've got it in the background here, that hub, you'll walk round the corner, there'll be a little cubby hole, and there'll be stuff full of Space Marines all worshipping and listening to a speech. It's phenomenal. I strongly recommend you have a look at the trailer I put together for this video. I will link it in description and annotate. So the sword is kind of your next logical step, the power sword as opposed to the chain sword, and that is a seriously cool piece of kit. It's got slightly more simplified moves to it, but you can get some flashier combos, smash it into the ground. I was not expecting that much variation on a weapon change out for the close quarters. There's also a combat dagger, which I did not even look at. I mean, how could you when you've got a power sword and a chain saber? I imagine that combat knife has probably got some tighter, slightly different animations on the glory kills, and that's one of the pleasures, is looking at how cool everything dies considering what alien type it is and what you're killing it with. I also want to touch on not looking at that expedition mode. It very quickly pushes you to a section on that main menu where you can go into a PvE match, i.e. you against Genestealer or Chaos with co-op buddies, online compulsory though. I thought it might be like a challenge room thing, but I didn't want to step into it because I have not finished that main story campaign and it does warn you on spoilers. I'd love some feedback on that section, and I may even look at it running up to the end of the year. And here's another piece of breathtaking trailer footage that is now in my video game. Is there enough boss fights? Yes, there are. Just do they mix it up enough with the different Tyranid and Genestealer types? Not really. You see a Carnifex twice. There's no like screamer killers. They do get involved with some of the hive tyrants and stuff, and even the flyers later on, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more variation before the game makes that commitment to the Chaos Marines. But it does swing it all back again afterwards. It's just quite a unrefreshing scene because they're all shooting at you and they do not give you as much crap as the Genestealers.
Carnifex Tub.
Okay, I feel it's time for me to talk about the melter cannon, which is one of my favourite primary weapons. Some of the weapons are going to gel with you, others aren't. The plasma's quite good with the builds, but you'll be running out of ammo and then only given a choice of what you don't want, and you will be forced into using it. The melter is just a shotgun that forces out a massive tube of lava, I'm assuming it is. It just fire soaks everything. The kickback on the haptics, which I wanted to mention at the start of the video, is very, very strong. It's one of the betters, and the guns all have their different variation. You also have a little bit of feedback when you were doing those specials on the melee and close quarters. So that one, apologies for mentioning earlier, stellar haptic feedback, and against that melter cannon, there's nothing else you need. Let's talk about the Chaos Marines very briefly. The chapter introduced is the Thousand Suns. If you know, they're like Pharaoh Egyptian aesthetic. I don't mind it, but it's quite far away from that pure darkness, almost Geiger, Clive Barker-esque stuff you see with the other chapters. I'm talking about all that gore and detail on the armor. It all seems a little bit too smooth to me. They are still incredible and frightening. The Terminators have done extremely well, but yeah, I've got a little bit of beef with the chapter chosen. So you know when you take a little break from a game, it might be for a couple of hours, you might get something to eat, you might even watch something else and then go back to it, and I'm like, oh, where am I up to in Space Marine 2? And it was this scene. Now it is an assault on the senses, particularly if you've got headphones on, and combined with that haptic and 4K visuals, nothing on earth really prepares you for some of the busy things in this video game. That sort of brings me on to whether or not this is actually a good third-person shooter, because there's some stunners out there on the market at the moment, Remnant from the Ashes 2 being one of them, but it doesn't really offer the rich detail that this does on a single-player level, and of course it doesn't touch on any Warhammer lore or aesthetic. This is by far the best Warhammer game out there at the moment on a third-person shooter level, but it isn't the best in its genre. To get to that spot would have been a ridiculously tough brief, and I'm extremely happy with what we got. What didn't impress me, however, was its launch and its physical presence on the shelves. The game only had one retail option in the UK digital stores on PSN, and that was the £100 full-blown ultra version, which is not on. The game retails at £70. It is going down now to about 60. I managed to find this pre-owned for 50, and I think that is probably the sweet spot, anything lower than that. But in the game's defense, I have not tried any of the online PvE co-op content on this game, and it always puts me on server prior to a mission, and I haven't tried any of the verses. A rumor has it that is not crap. We might have an Uncharted situation here. This is one of the rare sections where it underperformed on a frame rate level. What we've got is steps that have got enemy platoons on them, and it's a multi-tiered section. I'm flying around, slamming in, there's particles everywhere. It's fair enough, it didn't disrupt me, but it was the first time I was like, oh, the game does actually have frame drops in it. But this was 15 to 16 hours in. If you're into painting the miniatures or into any of the designs and lore behind the Leviathan ship and all this cool stuff surrounding the Tyranids and Space Marines in this game, it's very cool that Ultramarines get a cool mention as well. It's always the Blood Angels. Seeing all the color schemes and detail at this level of resolution and all the expertly animated gore and death scenes, it brings the whole genre alive. This is the perfect place for a Warhammer fan, and you don't have to be an expert at third-person shooters to get somewhere. I am actually so geared up for some more single player DLC. I've already seen some of that in the store, and I may well put a second video out just looking at the PvE co-op online campaign and how that sort of works with somebody else or with randoms, how the servers are, what the revive's like, is it any more difficult? You guys give me some feedback on that if you've been through some of it already. We are having a cracking year on the PlayStation 5, I'm not gonna lie. Rise of the Ronin really impressed me. Stellar Blade is an absolutely awesome awesome game. Dragon's Dogma 2 was not completely terrible, and we just had Outlaws, dare I speak its name. This scene, they could have done a lot more with this. Every mission should have started with a Helldivers sort of smash into the planet, right? Avoiding the Leviathan ships on your way down, the odd pod, and then bang, you hit the map square. That would have been a pretty cool entrance. This is some Hammer gameplay, and we are leaning into slight spoiler territory here. I don't really want to show you guys too much more. I will just lavish over the detail and design of this Chaos minion. The leg, the scales, the color change, the armor, the leather straps. This is a grunt enemy, and this is caught right in the middle of mid-game, mid-action. There's no motion blur, nothing's flickering. That photo mode will blow your mind if you're into Warhammer 40k. You won't get too far without having to just take it all in, and that's where this game very much scores. It's not the strongest in its genre, but it's certainly an absolutely award-winning Warhammer 40k game. And if you gave this video 20 minutes, then you gave me a chance to get somewhere on this platform. I have been Couch Cube. I will see you down there.